What's up, everybody? It is Raphael Rattler from New Orleans Basketball coming to you with a breakdown of the Pelicans' first victory of the season, 116-112 over the Charlotte Hornets. Going into this one, it felt like a very uphill battle. Not only that the Pelicans were coming off yet another devastating blowout to the Oklahoma City Thunder, but you also get news prior to the game that Zion Williamson is out with a grade 1 left hamstring strain and will be reevaluated in 7 to 10 days. Listen, from the beginning, all summer long, the reason this team was built and put together by Joe Dumars and by Troy Weaver, from their own words, was to be able to be built around a system and a group of players versus just one. And so far this season, the team has just been around Zion Williamson. He's led the team in the majority of the major categories. He's been the engine, and when he's not been on the court, it's looked really rough for the Pelicans at times. But ultimately, he's a player that has shown you is not capable of being on the court the majority of the time. And so you had to build a roster that was able to win even when he was not available. The first test didn't go so well versus Boston at home, where you got shellacked, even without Jason Tatum on the other end. This time around, it was a much better fight. The Pelicans look much more prepared and brought much more energy to the game. And so ultimately, it's something that they're going to have to get through at least the next 5 games, if not more, and probably more as the season goes on. But something they're going to have to be able to do if they want to turn this thing around. If you look at some of the best teams in the league, they are good with their superstar. They are good without their superstar, a la OKC. Another person goes down, you hear the age-old adage, next man up. It's harder to do that when you're without your superstars and you're not playing well and you're not connecting on the defensive end, but the Pelicans were able to do it at least for one night. Now, again, DeJounte Murray is out. He seems to get closer and closer to at least making his practice debut with the team coming off that Achilles rupture, and Misi was out with the illness. Now, on the Charlotte side of the things, they weren't playing with their best players either. Brandon Miller is going to be out for a little while longer, and LaMelo Ball set out this one. So going into the game, there was a lot less to be excited for if you were a fan attending this one. But all in all, it was a really good game, very competitive game, very hard-fought game on both sides. Now, yet again, the Pelicans had another starting lineup. That is their 6th starting lineups in just 7 games. This time, Willie Green chose to roll out Jeremiah Fears, Jordan Poole, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, and Kevon Looney at the 5. Now, this lineup, everything is going to be in small sample size. But even in the small sample size, in just 2 games and very few minutes of action, this lineup is minus 10.5. So it makes you look at the rotation, and it makes you look at the available players and saying, what are you going to do to try to string together some wins and not let this deficit continue to push you down in the loss column? And the first thing that is very glaring to me and is very obvious to me and for anyone watching the game last night is that the young big men, they need to play, right? Derik Queen, obviously, for everything that he's tied to, needs to play. Carlo Makovich, who you saw dusted off last night and really provide the Smoothie King Center and the Pelicans roster some much needed energy with 5 dunks off the bench. He needs to play. He gives you another level of athleticism at the 5 position. You saw some rim protection from him, and so far this season he hasn't, but he's really the only big on the roster who you can say can stretch the floor at times when it comes to that. And so he needs to play. Misi was out of this one, but we've already talked about his athleticism and him rim protection being something that you need on this roster. Look, I understand what Kevon Looney is going to bring to the team from a veteran leadership standpoint, from the ability to rebound, from a know-how standpoint, from the ability to pass down information to all the young guys we just mentioned. But as you saw last night, while he tries to get his feet underneath him, he is not going to give you the same level of rim protection that you need on this team that's still trying to figure themselves out defensively that the others give you. And on the offensive side of the board, that's another game. That's another game where Kevon Looney doesn't give you a whole lot on that end either. And so right now, when you need contribution from everyone across the roster with no Zion Williamson, I'm looking at the rotation and seeing what that's going to look like as the next couple of games kind of play themselves out. Because as you can see, Derrick Queen needs to get more minutes, and it's very obvious for a lot of reasons. But those other young players are showing you reasons why they need to get more minutes too. There were some other things with the rotation that I really noticed. I understand moving Jordan Poole back into the starting lineup with no Zion to give you some more punch, and Willie Green alluded to that as well. But last night for Charlotte, he just didn't have it. And what you notice was late in the game, Willie Green chose to pull Jordan Poole in lieu of Sadiq Bey and some other guys who, quite frankly, Jose Alvarado, who had it going and didn't. And I think it was the right call, right? I understand that there's a lot that goes into tough conversations and when there's cap space involved and players playing for the next contract and what that means to try to navigate that. And you've seen Willie Green go through these things in the past with other veterans. But I think in this situation, this is how you have to operate. The best teams in the league are able to make these decisions on the fly, sit players regardless of their status in the league, whether or not they have it going on that night. And I think for the Pelicans team, outside of Zion, anyone can be susceptible to this if another player has it going. And I think Willie Green made the right decision, regardless of what the outcomes may be in terms of feelings and things like that. Ultimately, Jordan Poole was costing the team both on the offensive end and the defensive end in that particular spot, and bringing another body in off the bench, I think was the right call. Now, another call that was interesting, that is going to be interesting to see moving forward if it continues to be, is Jordan Hawkins. He struggled yet again in this, and his time is just running out. There wasn't plays run for him, and without Zion Williamson's gravity and the ability to score, you're looking for floor spacers. You're looking for people who can generate their own offense. And if Jordan Hawkins is not doing that and not giving you that, and you're not running plays for him, your floor is higher with someone else off the bench, whether it's a bigger player, whether it's another less experienced player in a Micah Peavy, but actually an older player who gives you a higher floor in terms of his ability to at least defend on one side of the floor. And so it will be interesting as the next couple games play out to see who is up and who is down as far as the rotation goes. Now, someone who needs to be up for lots and lots and lots of reasons is Derrick Queen. He had an incredible fourth quarter, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, played the entire fourth quarter after playing sparing minutes in the previous 3 quarters and no minutes the game before. He led the team in rebounds, in assists, and in steals, and just energy from that end. And he showed, most importantly, from my point of view, he showed that he needs the offense run through him. Hub Derrick Queen is the reason why, Jose Alvarado alluded to this after the game, the reason why Troy Weaver and Joe Dumars decided to trade up and to risk everything for Derrick Queen, not so he could be a role player that played occasionally, but someone he could be a focal point within your team. And for a player who's so beyond his years when it comes to his IQ and how he sees the floor, you always thought that he would pick things up. Now, unfortunately, he was unavailable for most of training camp. And so the team was unable to kind of see these things come to light the same way they saw these things come to light with Jeremiah Fears. You didn't go into the season saying Jeremiah Fears is going to start at point guard or anything like that, but he was able to kind of earn that throughout the course of training camp, preseason, and so on and so forth. Derrick Queen didn't get his chance to do that because he was injured. And so part of it may be that, but it now looks like his legs are underneath him, and it now looks like he needs to be a focal point of not only the team for all the reasons that are aforementioned, but because the offense needs him, the team needs him from a body, from a skill standpoint. And so without Zion Williamson available for the next couple of weeks, without DeJounte Murray available for the foreseeable future, he might be your best hub option at this moment, not just because he is able to pass and he's a bigger body, but because he is one of the better facilitators on the roster already. Jeremiah Fears is a young player who's growing into his own from an offensive standpoint, and as he gets his feet underneath him in the league. but he's learning from the playmaking standpoint, from the facilitation standpoint. Whereas I think Derrick Queen that's already a skill of his where he's learning in other areas. And so it's not a coincidence that again, everything's in a very small sample size, but it's not a coincidence that the three best lineups so far this year for the Pelicans all have Derik Queen in them. And I think that the more and more that you see him and he plays, the more and more he's going to have more minutes on the court, which begs the question, why can't he start right now? I think the idea of having a big bodied four who's able to generate offense and to collapse the defense and then make the correct passes thereafter, having a guy like Zion being in your typical starting unit and then having a guy like Derrick Queen coming off the bench, you can function in it. It looks different because Zion is a much different player than Derrick Queen, but what you're trying to achieve is the same. And so I'm looking at things I'm trying to understand with the players who are available right now, how long it will be before he really gets some looks at the starting position and starting at the floor. Because the first question is going to be, well, what's the floor spacing going to be like if Derrick Queen is at the four and you have a Yves Missi or Carlo Makovich or Kevon Looney at the five? Well, I'm looking at the team and I see Herb Jones shooting 48% from three, looking like he's really caught that rhythm back from before the injury last season. Trey Murphy starting to hit more shots, which we'll get to later, and starting to become the Trey Murphy that people know from beyond the arc. Jeremiah Fears, who's not shooting a great percentage for three so far, but he's shooting 38% with catch and shoot threes, which is the exact same percentage as Jordan Poole. And so I look at Herb Jones and Jeremiah Fears and say, as long as those guys are hitting their catch and shoot opportunities, why not use a Derrick Queen in the same hub-like fashion that you use Zion in? Because a part of floor spaces is being able to generate good looks from other people. And part of that comes with collapsing the defense and attacking the rim, whether it be from the elbow, whether it be from the post, whether it be at the rim. And right now, without Zion, what you've seen so far this season is that people have been reluctant to do that. You've seen Jordan Poole attempt to do that. Trey Murphy's been struggling in that area. Jeremiah Fears is a 19-year-old trying to continue to figure out, how do I finish around these 7-foot guys who can all jump out the gym and who are fast enough to at least block my shot or deter my shot in the NBA. I think Derrick Queen is kind of that option there. And so for a team that also struggles to rebound when Zion is leading the team in rebounds and then Yves Missi and Trey Murphy, Derrick Queen, in a very small sample size, is fourth on that list. And so I actually think he may be the most talented rebounder on the team right now. And so I just think there's a lot of reasons to see why he either should at least be heavily involved in rotation, but potentially be a starting option there. So we also talk about Trey Murphy and him starting to see some shots fall. And I think that was really important for him, just to get his confidence going. At his heart, he is a shooter. He is a long distance shooter at that. And he's growing to become a playmaker or a well-rounded scorer as well. But what he does best is shoot. And so when the shot's not falling, and that's what you do best, you could see how a player could get discouraged and lose confidence. But if the Pelicans are going to be anything, Trey Murphy has to play like he did yesterday. I thought his activity was much higher. You saw him in the passing lanes. You saw him disruptive. You saw him back on the board when it comes to one block, one steal. I still think there's more he can do on the boards, and I still think there's more he can do attacking the rim. But seeing shots go in, you see the confidence come back from him. And he talked about it at practice yesterday or prior to the game. He has to be a better job of being a leader because the rest of the players are following his lead. And when he's able to bring the team along with his energy and his activity and his effort, you see everybody else come along with that. And so I thought that was a really good showing for Trey Murphy. Statistically may not have been his best game of the season, but I thought collectively it was his best game showing so far this season. Now, the Pelicans got to win. And I think that Jose Alvarado being the guy to hit the game-winning shot that ultimately gave them the lead and was able to win the game for the team, I think it says a lot. Because this is how the Pelicans need to win. They need to win the way that Jose Alvarado plays. He embodies effort. He embodies toughness. he plays hard from the beginning to the end. And for a player like that who said after the game, the play wasn't designed for me, but I shot it, and I shot it with confidence. I think that him winning in that fashion and him bringing the team back and being the smart play that the team needs, that's an energy piece that a team can build and grow on. You see the team here, hey, we just need to see one win. It's very similar to a shooter who's going through a cold slump. You shoot, you brick. You just need to see one go in. And for a Pelicans team that's coming off their first win of the season that they desperately had to have, the way that they won it and who delivered it, I think shows a lot and something you can build from a player who literally is willing to throw his body all over the court, even though it leads to injuries. You saw him sell a charge from Trey in the clutch when the team needed it the most. That embodies how you can consistently win, because yes, the threes are going to fall some nights and they're going to not fall other nights. But if you don't bring that effort on the defensive end, you're going to see the 30-point losses over and over and over. So you at least give yourselves a chance. And I thought the way the game was closed out by Jose was a great indication of what the Pelicans can mirror and say, that's who we need to be. Now, what to watch for moving forward is tonight's game versus the Mavericks. Can you bring that same energy on a second night of a back-to-back? You've seen other teams do it. The Pelicans already lost to the Bostons, do it. The Pelicans are a young team. They're not going far. They're going from New Orleans to Dallas. It's an hour flight. You have to build off that energy because you got Wemby around the corner. You got OKC. You've got all these other teams that you've got. And right now, the Mavericks are struggling. They struggle to score. They're the only team in the NBA that is worse at scoring than the Pelicans so far this season. And so for a team that's struggling on their end and on the Pelicans end, struggling to score on one end, the Mavs still give themselves a chance because they're a much better defensive team than the Pelicans right now. You, as a Pelicans team, can't allow that team to get going offensively on you, because if they're able to get stops, I know they're down Anthony Davis. I know they're down Derek Lively, obviously no Kyrie Irving and things along those lines. But if you let that team get going offensively just because you're giving up easy buckets, easy drives to the rim, easy open threes, and things like that, you're just taking 2 steps forward to take another step back, maybe 3 steps back at this point, especially without a healthy Zion Williamson. And so I think it's very interesting to see the energy that the Pelicans start with, but also are able to carry out throughout the game. My last key to the game is, does the ball continue to move? When you don't have a Zion, you don't have a DeJounte Murray. Last night, you saw the Pelicans have 27 assists. That's how they need to play. 0.5 offense where the ball keeps moving until you find a good shot. I think having Derrick Queen as a part of that. I think the rim running from one end of the court to the other from Karlo Magovic is a part of that. How you generate offense can't be so difficult in the half court over and over and over, especially versus a team as big and as physical as the Dallas Mavericks. And so how well the Pelicans continue to move the ball, how the Pelicans continue to trust each other on the defensive end and cover up for each other like they did last night versus the Hornets for the majority of the game, I think that will tell them the tale of if they can win a second game on this season. So with that being said, we will see you after the Dallas game.